Save Democracy in America, a nonpartisan organization to get big money out of politics. He's also the author of Get Money Out of Politics. The Time Is Now. In the book and in shorter pieces that come out of his research, Dan helps Americans understand how organized money has broken our political system, he believes, and robbed us of all of our rightful say in how we are governed. You can read the book now. Dan McMillan, welcome and good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Laura. I'm terrific. It's nice to be with you again.
I'm glad that you're here. Welcome back to you. Hey, there's a lot going on. And of course, there's a new poll out of New Hampshire. It seems to highlight some pretty deep concerns about an issue that is near and dear to your intellectual heart, money in politics. What is it suggesting?
Well, the poll is near to my heart because I commissioned it together with my New Hampshire allies. And yes, I mean, what it shows, among other things, is sky-high levels of outrage across the board politically, left, right, and center, against the excessive role of money in politics. And when I talk about sky-high, I'm talking about north of 90%. New Hampshire voters, outraged that, that donors can spend unlimited amounts of money to influence campaigns, that politicians can benefit from unlimited amounts of money. Anger in particular, that we pay twice as much for prescription drug prices as the citizens of really every other wealthy society, and we can't bring drug prices down. We can't regulate them the way these other countries do, because Big Pharma's got most of Congress in its pocket from campaign donations. But perhaps, I think, for me, the most interesting and heartening result is the very strong agreement with the proposition that, our country stands for government by the people. This is an ideal that defines us. Big money makes a mockery of that ideal. It's un-American. It's unpatriotic. And what's also, I guess, the other data point that I connect with that I find very encouraging is when we asked Americans to volunteer just an open-ended question, in their own words, what bothers them most about the state of American politics, by far the most common answer, 29%, was excessive partisan anger, the parties bickering, the parties refusing to work together for the good of the country. And the reason I connect that data point with this outrage about the betrayal of American ideals is that, when we're looking for ways to bring Americans together in common purpose and kind of at least dial back the partisan anger that's making our country ungovernable, I think this points the way, is just to get back to basics, to remind Americans that for all our differences, we all, we live in a special country because our country stands for ideals, and foremost among those ideals is government by the people, which we invented. And so I guess, how do we get back on one page? It's to kind of remind people that in our country, and only in our country, and only in this country, that, patriotism and government by the people are kind of one and the same thing. So that's the single most encouraging result I would see from this poll.
It is very encouraging that the people are engaged, and at times one's anger can manifest in the sense of, look, I recognize what the ideals are of this country, and I'd like to have that actually be the law politically of the land. But taking a step back when it comes to money and money in politics, the real concern that people have, and this poll suggests, is that those who are the big donors, who are funding the campaigns of candidates, they will be the exclusive ones to have their grievances, their concerns, their interests served and heard by these politicians. And so if you're not a big donor, if you're not, the sort of daddy warbucks of it all, then you're not going to be able to have the influence on your elected representatives as somebody who does. And if that's the case, special interests would rule the day. That's the concern, right?
That is absolutely the concern. And the reality, Laura, is that it's not just recently, it's not just in Citizens United, for decades now, we the people have been out in the cold because we long ago stopped being the true constituents of our elected representatives in Washington. They're donors to their constituents. And it's not their fault. It's not because these politicians are evil people. It's because raising money hand over fist is part of the job. It comes with the territory. You can't mount a serious campaign for national office and for a lot of state offices without raising a ton of cash right off the bat. Otherwise, you're not viable, and the public never even knows your name because the media won't take you seriously. And that leaves us, again, out in the cold. Our voice is no longer heard.
84% of New Hampshire voters agree that politicians ignore them and listen only to the big donors who fund their campaigns. Then you've got this other percentage here. 82% of New Hampshire voters agree that we can't cut wasteful spending because special interests, which pay for candidates' campaigns, to your point you just raised, block us from cutting programs that benefit them. And you just look at those two aspects of it. Why did you choose New Hampshire? Obviously, they are, by law, although South Carolina is not very happy about it, the first in the nation to have their primaries. What is it about the New Hampshire voter in particular that you think is very that transcends the boundaries for other areas to have us all learn from this?
Well, one reason is that New Hampshire is a purple state with relatively moderate politics, a higher than average percentage who are clearly identified as independents or unaffiliated, as they call it, or undeclared in New Hampshire, than other parts of the country. So it's not a bad proxy for, getting to Americans who are sick of the excessive partisan anger, which I think most Americans on both sides of the aisle are. The other reason, the reason why I'm partnering with a grassroots organization in Concord and why I'm investing the bulk of my resources and time in New Hampshire for the next year and a half is that because New Hampshire is first in the nation, if we can get enough New Hampshire voters to tell primary candidates and to tell national media, look, my top priority is I want my country back. I don't want my government to be for sale. I want a voice in Washington. Well, if you get enough New Hampshire voters to say that to candidates, then suddenly the candidates can't run away from the money issue, which is what they all want to do. And then we can elevate this issue. We can force this issue into the national conversation by using the fact that every 4 years for at least 8 months, the eyes of the nation are on New Hampshire. In New Hampshire is where I think we get the biggest bang for our buck.
We'll play devil's advocate for a second for those who are running their campaigns. And of course, they might say, look, hold on. The reality is we need all the money to come into politics and our campaigning, not because we are bought and paid for and in the pocket of a special interest, but because, look, it's going to take money. If you're trying to win a general election or a primary election, you've got to travel the country. There is increased security issues because of misinformation and increased polarization. It costs money to run these advertising campaigns. It's not just a poster here and there. It's across the board social media and mainstream media and everywhere else in between. Is that a viable aspect of why some of the money is in politics?
I think that's the explanation why all the money is in politics. And that's why our focus, Laura, the whole purpose of my organization is to promote an alternative source where candidates can get this money so that they can serve us, namely to make ourselves the donors. This is the voter-owned elections reform that I and my New Hampshire allies promote. You've heard of it before. It's been also called democracy dollars or democracy vouchers. And it's simply this. For every federal election cycle, the federal government would give every registered voter an online account of campaign cash. You can't take it out and spend it, but you go online and you assign it to the candidates you want to support. And if we fund the system robustly, as we demand, then any competent candidate who wants to represent us will be able to get enough money from us, from the voters, to fund the kind of expensive campaign you need to be competitive. And on the other hand, that candidate's opponents are not going to have an excuse anymore to take money from big pharma, big oil, or any other special interest. Right now, no candidate can make an issue out of money in politics because all candidates on both sides of the aisle need to take this money from private donors, from special interests. But if you create an alternative pool of public money, then suddenly there's no excuse anymore for being a stooge for corporate interests. There's no excuse anymore for not serving the American people.
Dan McMillan, thank you so much for joining us today. He is the founder and also leader of Save Democracy in America, a nonpartisan organization to get big money out of politics. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Laura. Good to talk with you.